It was a fine summer morning, perfect to be outdoors. Two sisters had been out mushroom picking and were on their home with heavy baskets full of mushrooms. They sang songs on the way and played with each other. Soon, they reached a point where they had to cross a railway track. They did not think twice about crossing it, since there was no train coming, and they could not hear any whistle. They slowly climbed the embankment to cross the track, taking care not to drop the baskets. They were very near the track, and the little sister was about to cross it, when they heard the distinct horn of a train. The older sister got frightened and ran back. She thought that the young one was following her. She turned back and was shocked to see her little sister still crossing the track. "Come back here. Run back fast," she screamed. It seemed that the little girl could not hear her sister. She was still concentrating on stepping over the track with her little feet and holding on to the basket. Then she tripped and fell on the track, scattering her mushrooms around. She sat down and began picking them up and putting in her basket. In the meanwhile, the elder sister had become hysteric. She cried and screamed, calling her little sisters to leave the mushrooms and run back. But it seemed as though the little one could not hear her. The engine driver panicked on seeing the girl and blew his whistle with all his might, but she appeared not to hear the whistle. Her sister was now crying loudly, overcome by panic, as the little sister crawled between the tracks on her hands and knees to pick the rest of the mushrooms. The engine driver was helpless, as it was not possible for him to stop the engine suddenly. He blew the whistle as hard as he could, but the engine rolled over the little girl. The older sister clasped her face with her trembling hands and cried bitterly. The passengers too panicked at the thought of the sight they would have to witness. The guard ran down to the end of the train to see what happened to the little girl. When the train passed, everybody saw her lying very still between the tracks with her face down. Then she raised her head, sprang to her knees, and began gathering the remaining mushrooms. The big sister ran towards her, tears streaming down her face. They hugged and kissed each other, crying out of happiness, tears of joy flowing down their little cheeks. Never were two souls so happily united as at that moment. She promised her little sister that thereafter she would hold her hand tightly while crossing the railway line. The two sisters then picked all the remaining mushrooms and, hand in hand, solemnly walked back home. They were indeed two souls who had become wiser than their years in the span of a few minutes. One day, a clever jackal was wandering about in the forest in search of food. He had not eaten for 3 days and was extremely hungry. He knew if this went on for another day, he may die. Therefore, he sat and thought of an idea on how to get some food. He was aware that a farmer named Joseph had a sugarcane field on the border of the forest. Joseph's sugarcane fields had grown, and he was planning to harvest them. He had fenced the boundaries of the farm so wild animals would not invade and destroy the sugarcane. Joseph had built a small tree house so he could stay up there and watch the farm at night. One night, as he was sitting on his tree house, the clever jackal approached him. He told the farmer, "Dear sir, your farm is soon going to be invaded by a huge elephant. There was shortage of food in the forest, so the big elephant living in the forest had decided to invade his farm. So be ready with your weapons." Joseph got worried hearing the jackal's advice. He had put so much effort in the farm, and it would be a pity if the sugarcane fields were destroyed. He was left with no choice but to take his bow and arrows and lay in wait for any intruders. After visiting Joseph, the clever jackal went to the elephant. The elephant was grazing near a pond. The jackal went up to him and asked, "Dear sir, it appears that you are not getting enough food to feed yourself. The problem is that you are a vegetarian and that you eat only a select lot of plants." The elephant replied, "You are right. I cannot eat all plants and am forced to travel from forest to forest in search of food. It is a tedious task, and there are days I even go without food. However, this forest is a bit better than the rest." The clever jackal smiled to himself and said, "I have some good news for you. There is a place where you can feast for at least 1 week." "That's interesting. Please tell me more about it," said the elephant. The jackal told the elephant all about Joseph's sugarcane fields. He added, the harvest was to take place tomorrow or the day after. The sugarcane fields are ripe and will be a real feast for you. The jackal added, "He has fenced it, but the fence is no match for your might. You can go there tonight and feast until you are full. So don't miss this opportunity. Thank you for providing me with this information. I shall go there in the evening and creep in at midnight when the farmer is asleep," said the elephant. "That is a great idea, as Joseph sleeps like a log." The jackal then visited the boundary of the field, where a huge and ancient oak tree stood and was home to many animals. Joseph was standing close to the next tree, and it appeared he was making plans for the night. "What are you doing here?" asked the jackal. Joseph replied, "I am searching for a place where I can have a clear shot at the elephant." The jackal then advised Joseph to stand under the nearby old oak tree, as it had a great view. He added that he could also stand behind the oak tree, and the elephant will not be able to see him. Joseph was happy at the jackal's advice, as he too had thought the same. Therefore, he decided to go to his hut, have an early supper, and return. The wily jackal then went to the oak tree. He was aware that a snake was staying on the base of the tree. He called out to the snake and told him, "Dear sir, you are in great danger. The farmer, who owns the sugarcane field, plans to kill you tonight. Have you ever seen him?" Yes. Isn't his name Joseph?" "Well, he has decided to destroy you and your family because you are a nuisance to his livestock," said the jackal. "What shall I do, my dear jackal? He is big and always carries weapons." The jackal said, "Don't worry, he plans to come here tonight and will be hiding behind the tree. Before he can react, go and bite him twice or thrice, and that will be the end of Joseph." The jackal wished him success and bade goodbye. He was sure that his plan would work, and if all goes well, he would have a dead elephant, man, and snake by the next day. That should be enough meat for a month and a half. The elephant, as planned, slowly entered the sugarcane fields at midnight. The farmer, noticing the elephants, took out his bow and arrow and shot 3 arrows at the elephant. The elephant cried in pain and fell. Joseph got down from the tree, and no sooner he stepped down, he felt a sharp pain on his ankles. He felt as if an insect had bitten him a couple of times. Looking down, he saw a snake slithering away. Quickly, he raced after it and trampled it, and the snake was dead. Shortly, Joseph too fell down and died. The elephant also had died by now. The jackal slowly ventured close to the hunter. He noticed the bow lying next to the hunter. He bit it to remove it from the way, and in the process cut the bowstring. The tension in the string was so much that the sharp end of the bow entered the jackal's throat, and that was the end of the wily jackal. Moral: evil wishes, like chickens, come home to roost. Once upon a time, there lived a shrewd rat. The rat was kind. However, he would always bargain for just about anything. One day, while walking along the road, he found a broken branch lying under a tree. The rat put it in his bag to use it for his furnace in winter. He continued his journey and came across a poor old man trying to light a fire. Around the man were 3 little girls who were crying. The shrewd rat immediately offered his help to the old man. The old man, who mistook the rat's intents, replied, "Of course you can help. My children are hungry, and the wood is wet. I cannot build a fire to cook their meager breakfast." The rat said, "I have some dry branches, which you can use it to make a fine blaze." The thankful old man offered the rat some dough in return. The shrewd rat was happy that he got a week's supply of dough for a dry branch. He carried on his journey and entered a pottery maker's yard. There he found 2 boys crying. The rat comforted them and asked, "What is your problem? Perhaps I can help you." The elder boy stopped crying and said, "Our parents have gone to the village. They went to get some food and haven't returned, and we are hungry." The rat said, "Well, take this dough and bake it. Soon you will have bread to eat." The children thanked the rat and offered a pot made by their father. They said, "We will not forget your kindness." The proud rat tottered off with the pot. It was heavy, but the rat was happy at his shrewdness. He thought the exchange for the flour was a good deal. He continued his journey and came across a farmer milking a cow. Since he did not have pail, he was draining the milk into his shoes. The rat said, "You are making your milk dirty by draining it into your shoes. It would be better if you had a pail or a pot." Saying so, he offered the farmer his pot. The farmer offered the rat some milk to drink in return. However, the rat refused it and said, "I need a better bargain. Perhaps you ought to give me a cow." The farmer laughed at the rat's suggestion and said, "You are a little animal. What will you do with this cow?" The rat said, "Well, that's my problem. I will learn to handle the cow." Therefore, the farmer tied the cow's rein around the rat's neck. The rat walked a few yards in a cocky manner and soon realized the rope was choking him. As the cow had stopped to graze, the rat had no choice but to wait. He thought, as the cow was his property, he ought to take good care of the cow. Therefore, he thought that he should follow the cow. The whole day went by. The cow moved from one spot to another, and the rat struggled to catch up. Finally, at dusk, the cow stopped by the river and rested. The weary rat gratefully sat beside him. Very soon, a wedding procession passed by and stopped to rest beside the stream. 4 men were carrying the bride in a palanquin. They stopped by and began cooking some rice, as that was all they had. The rat, seeing the predicament of the hungry bearers, thought of another plan. He offered his cow to the 4 palanquin bearers as their supper. They laughed at the suggestion, but eventually agreed as they were hungry. Soon, they had a huge steak and offered a tiny piece to the rat. The rat became angry at their offer. He explained to them about how he got the cow. He then added, "Therefore, I will take nothing less than the bride herself." The bearers realized their mistake and fled. The rat went up to the palanquin and lifted the curtain. He then told the lovely bride, "My dear, you are mine, and I shall look after you." The girl giggled and followed the rat, as she was alone and frightened. They reached the rat's hole, and the rat invited her to his home. Obviously, she could not get in, as the hole was tiny. Therefore the rat said, "Tomorrow, I shall make the hole larger. Until then, you can sleep under that plum tree." The bride complained, "I cannot sleep, as I am hungry." The rat, grumbling that all brides were a pain, went into his hole and came with a plum. The girl looked in awe at the plum. She then said, "You expect me to daily cook, clean the house, and do other jobs for just a plum?" The rat shook his head in disbelief. He had not expected this from his new wife. He said, "Tomorrow, I shall get you some delicacies from the market." The next day, the mouse and the girl went to the market. They reached the palace, and there was the bride's mother, the queen waiting for at the gates. Thrilled, the queen and daughter embraced each other. The rat was fuming all this time. He told the queen, "She is my wife now. I traded a cow for her, so she belongs to me." The wise queen could scarcely hold back her laughter. She said, "My dear son-in-law, we have been waiting for you. We have prepared a special room for you." Delighted, the rat followed the queen. The queen took him to the oven and asked him to go in. The rat leaped inside and bang! The oven door shut. He sat there fuming, while the queen and daughter were laughing uncontrollably. Soon the temperature became hotter, and the rat's tail caught fire. He cried out loud, "Please let me out. I shall never make a bargain again." On hearing this, they let him out. He ran. His head hung in shame. The rat had learned his lesson. He never made another bargain. Message: the rat thought that it was a clever rat indeed, but all his clever bargaining was only greed. Moral: never try to push your good chances too far, or you may lose what you have. A mouse was having a very thought time. She had no food for many days, and made strenuous efforts get her food. All her efforts went in vain. She looked everywhere to find her food. As the days passed by, she became very thin. One day, the mouse found a basket with corns. She also noticed a tiny hole in the basket, which was sufficient enough to move her in. She easily moved inside the hole. Since she had no foods for many days, she ate a large amount of corn. Without realizing her, she continuously ate more and more corns. She realized very later that she ate a lot more than she actually required. After eating a whole lot of corn, she became very fat. Satisfied with corns, the fat mouse tried to come out of the basket through the small hole. Unfortunately, the tiny hole could not accommodate the big mouse. The mouse started screaming, "Oh God, let me come out. How can I come out?" A rat, after hearing Mouse's screaming voice from the basket, asked her what happened. Mouse told the story and asked Rat a solution. Rat told, "If you want to come out the basket, wait for some time, or even days to lose all your fat until you grow thin." Mouse started to starve now, but with lots of food to come out of the trap. Anything too much is good for nothing. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful and extremely amiable girl named Walk. She was a good girl, but she never liked her name, as all the kids around her made fun of her name. She ran away from everybody who teased her name, and hence, Walk never really had friends. She would play alone all the time. On a regular day, when Walk returned home from school, she finished her homework as soon as possible and asked her mother if she could go out and play. Her mother said yes, but warned her to not wander and go far away from home. Walk was happy that day. She went to her favorite spot near the river, running just behind her house. Walk had this theory that wherever the river was splashing and moving, it meant that the river water was taking to her. Walk spoke back to the river in her own little weird way. Today, when talking to the river, she said, "You are so fortunate, river, as you get to travel different places and always be with your friends, ducks, turtles, fishes, and plants. I wish I had more friends and wouldn't be alone anymore." When she was bored talking to the river, she would pick up stones from nearby and try to skip them across the river, like her dad. However, she would fail most of the times. She would then say to the river, "I am getting better each day. I am more of a thrower than a skipper." After many attempts at skipping rock, she finally finds a perfect rock, almost round, flat, and protruding at one end where she could hold and skip it in water. She held the stone tight in her fingers and innocently said to the river, "Oh dear river, if only I could skip this rock and make a wish. I would wish for a dear friend just like you. And if the rock skips all the way across you while wishing, I wouldn't be as lonely as I am now." Saying this, Walk whipped her arm back, just like her dad had taught her, and skipped the rock across the river with full force and dedication. She watched the rock skip once, twice, thrice, and she kept wishing for a friend while counting. To her amazement, the rock went on skipping for the 4th, 5th, and 6th time, and eventually on the 7th skip, it finally made it across the river onto the shore of the opposite side. Walk was totally taken aback. She had been holding her breath so hard and wishing so desperately that when the stone skipped the river and landed across, she could not just believe her eyes. Her deep thoughts and sheer happiness were disturbed when she heard footsteps coming her way. Walk immediately came to senses and started looking around. A little girl was tumbling down towards her. Walk panicked and started to run, but she lost her balance, and she fell off too. Rolling down towards the river, the unknown little girl and Walk fell almost on the same spot beside each other. The tumbling girl was crying profusely and endlessly, holding on to her knee. Walk pulled herself together and went close to the girl to help her. Walk saw that the girl's knee was bleeding. She said the calmest words to her, "It will be all right. I will help you clean the wound." Walk took some water from the river, washed away the blood from the wound, tore a piece of cloth from her skirt, and tied it around the wound on the knee to cover the cut. She politely said to the girl, "My house is nearby. Let me help you. My mother will take care of the wound." Walk helped the girl walk until her house. Once they both had reached Walk's house, Walk called out to her mother, "Mother, there is a girl with me, and she fell down by the river. Her knee is cut, and there is blood all over her dress." On hearing this, Walk's mother came running out of the kitchen with the first aid box. She made the little girl sit on a couch and started cleaning the wound. She cleaned her knee with an antiseptic and applied colorful bandages to lighten up the girl's face. She then inquired the girl, asking her where she lived. The girl promptly told Walk and her mother that she had just moved in a house, probably next door. All the houses looked so similar that she mixed up the one she lived in. Walk gasped and felt a hint of joy think about her wish. The little girl looked at Walk and asked, "What is your name?" Walk was stunned and scared to tell her name because she did not want the girl to make fun of her name like other kids. However, Walk's mother replied, "Her name is Walk, and I'm glad she could help you." On hearing this, the little girl began to laugh and almost happened to fall on the ground. Walk felt the pinch, and she was on the verge of breaking into tears. Walk closed her eyes and said to herself, "Is this the friend I get in return for my wish?" Just then, the girl stopped laughing and voluntarily said, "I am sorry for my manners, but it is absolutely funny as my name happens to be Run." Walk gave a surprised look to her new friend and almost broke into laughter herself. Just to make sure, she asked Run whether her name was seriously Run and she was not trying to make fun of her. Run reassuringly said to Walk, "You helped me and wiped my wound. Why would I ever lie to you or even make fun of you?" Listening to these words, Walk felt tremendous happiness and was filled with joy. Her wish to the river had come true, and now she had a very good friend named Run. Walk would never forget that day. It was the day Walk and Run became the best of friends forever. Sammy always worried about his wife, Dolly. They were married for almost 15 years. While Dolly was a village girl, Sammy was raised in a city. Although they had a lot of cultural differences in life, Dolly managed everything to perfection. The latest worry about Dolly was that she was losing her hearing. Sammy was worried that due to aging, Dolly was gradually losing her hearing capacity. It happened one day when Sammy was in the living room and asked for a cup of tea from Dolly. Dolly did not respond. He increased his voice and once again asked her for some tea. Still, he heard nothing from Dolly. He got up and slowly walked to the kitchen and asked Dolly for some tea. Dolly was a bit surprised and said that she would bring it in 10 minutes. A few days after that incident, Sammy had to leave town for a week. After his return, he decided to find out the extent of his wife's hearing loss. He discussed this matter with a doctor. Prior to taking Dolly to the doctor told him an easy way to find the extent of her hearing loss. Sammy reached home and called for his wife, Dolly, as he entered. Dolly was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. He heard nothing from her. Then he asked her from the entrance door, "Dolly, what's for dinner?" Surprise, no response. All was silent. He went to his room and asked her, "I am here. What's for dinner, Dolly?" He sat on the sofa and asked her again, "Dolly, what's for dinner?" Again, it was silent. He asked her, "What's for dinner?" as he washed his face. He then moved a few steps ahead towards kitchen and asked the same. He tried with the question, "What's for dinner?" standing at different places at home to identify the extent of hearing loss. He heard nothing from her. He then moved to kitchen and asked her, "Dolly, what's for dinner?" Dolly became furious at him and said, "I am saying it for the 8th time. It is chicken. Can't you hear it?" Sammy went speechless. Sammy realized that one should not get into conclusions or blame others without knowing the truth. At the border of a forest, a landlord had a big garden, which he liked very much. As he couldn't look after it himself, he appointed a gardener to take care of the garden. The gardener was very faithful and looked after the garden very well. However, it was the summer season and he had to water the plants daily. As a result, there was no holiday for him, because if he ever took leave, even for a day, most of the plants would dry up. Whenever he approached the landlord with a request to take even a day off, the landlord would puff up and say, "Who would water the plants in your absence? As there is no one else to water the plants in your absence, I am afraid. I cannot grant you any leave." The gardener was frightened and had no reply, and as a result, he had to give up the thought of taking any day off, and hence the drudgery continued. One day, as the annual temple festival was to take place in the gardener's village, he was very eager to go and participate in the festivities. Hence, he decided to take at least one day off, but did not have the courage to face the landlord and ask for a day off. So, he thought all night and came up with a plan. He decided to approach a group of monkeys that were staying in a nearby forest. The gardener cautiously approached the leader of the monkeys and told him that he was a gardener and worked in the big house bordering the forest. He pointed out to the house, and the leader of the monkeys nodded in acknowledgement. The gardener said that the house belonged to the landlord and that he was a cruel and unkind man. He went on to add that the landlord did not give him a single day's rest. The gardener then put forth his plight to the leader of the monkeys. He said, "Tomorrow is a big festival in my village, and I wish to go and participate. Can you possibly help me?" The monkey chief was a bit taken aback, as he had no idea as to how help the poor gardener. He asked the gardener, "In what way can I or my subjects help you?" The gardener then laid down his plan. "For one day, starting tomorrow, you and your subjects please look after my work." He further added that he would provide vessels and pots to all the monkeys, and all they had to do was to take it to the river, fill it, and subsequently water each plant. The monkey chief, after listening to the gardener's tale of woe, felt pity for him and said, "Don't worry, you go and attend your festival, and we shall look after your work." The gardener was relieved and happy. He gave some vessels and pots to the monkeys and quickly left for his village to take part in the temple festival. However, the monkeys had one doubt. They had no idea as to how much water they should pour on each plant, as they forgot to ask the gardener. So they approached the chief and told them about their problem. The monkey chief thought for a while and said, "You have to water each plant according to the length of its root." His subjects then asked the leader on how they could find the length of the roots. The monkey chief got a bit angry, dismissed them, and said, "Pull out each plant, find out how far the roots have gone in, and put them back, and then water each plant accordingly." The monkeys were awestruck at their chief's wisdom, and they all applauded. The chief then proudly asked his subjects to get down to work without delay. The monkeys did as advised. They pulled each plant out, saw the length of the roots, and planted them back haphazardly and watered them. Because of this, most of the plants lost their roots in this process and started drying up. The next day, the landlord came out for a stroll in his favorite garden and noticed that all his plants had been uprooted and that they were drying up. He immediately summoned for the gardener. The frightened gardener told the landlord what had happened, and this made the landlord very angry, and he immediately dismissed the gardener from his job. As a result of his foolish act, the gardener lost his job. A dog and a cock, who were the best of friends, decided to leave their farm as they wanted to travel and see the world. They were curious and wanted to see what was there beyond their farm. So they decided to leave the farmyard and set out along the road that led to the woods, that would lead them on their path to see the world. The two friends were extremely happy about their decision to travel to see the world, and were hoping for many adventures on their way. As night approached, the cock searched for a place to roost. As was his usual custom, he spotted a tall, hollow tree on the border of the forest, and felt that the tree would be an excellent place for spending the night. The cock also thought that his friend, the dog, could sleep inside the hollow base of the tree, and as per plan, the dog slept below, and the cock flew to one of the branches and spent the night there. Both having found a safe and nice place to rest, they slept comfortably. As the first glimmer of dawn approached, the cock forgot for a moment where he was. He woke up thinking that he was still at the farmyard, as it was his duty to arouse and wake the rest of the animals at the farm at daybreak. He stood tiptoes on the branch, flapped his wings, and crowed proudly. Having crowed 2 or 3 times, he suddenly realized that he was not at the farm anymore, and stopped crowing. However, the damage had been done, and instead of waking the farm animals and the farmer, he had awakened a fox, who was not too far in the woods. The fox was hungry, as he had not eaten anything the previous day, and was on the lookout for a prey. He saw the rooster perched high on the tree, and had rosy visions of a delicious breakfast. However, the fox noticed how high the cock was positioned, and was thinking of a plan to bring down the rooster so as to kill him for his breakfast. He immediately hurried to where the rooster was, and said very politely, "A humble welcome to our forest. Dear sir, I cannot tell you how happy I am to see you in our forest. I am sure that we can become the best of friends." The cock, realizing that something was afoot, asked the fox, "Why? How can that be possible?" The fox very calmly told the rooster, "Have you not heard about the new decree of peace and harmony that was recently issued by the lion, the king of the jungle?" The rooster replied, "No, I haven't. But what is this decree all about?" The fox added that the new treaty issued by the king lion emphasizes that all beasts, birds, and every other creature in our forest shall not hurt each other, but instead should live in peace and universal brotherhood. Hence, we are not supposed to hunt, hurt, or prey upon one another, but instead live in peace and harmony. So, please do come down, and we can discuss this matter of such great importance. By now, the rooster had realized that the cunning fox was up to something, and did not say anything, but kept looking at the bottom of the tree, as if he was searching for someone. Noticing this, the fox asked the rooster whether he had lost something or searching for someone. The rooster replied that he was flattered to hear the new decree, and requested the fox to go to the bottom of the tree and wake his friend and convey this news to him. The hungry and unsuspecting fox, thinking that there were other roosters down below, rushed to the tree's hollow, as advised by the rooster, and was a bit taken aback to see the sleeping dog. Noticing the dog, the fox immediately started running to the forest. The rooster called out to the fox and said, "Please don't go." The dog was his master's pet, and that he was also a good friend of the rooster's. The rooster continued, "I was just on my way down. We shall wait for my friend the dog to wake up, and we shall discuss about this new treaty that the king lion has issued, and celebrate the new reign of universal peace." The fox, who was already on the run, said, "I would be happy to meet and greet your friend, but I am afraid that he may not have heard about the King Lion's new treaty of peace. Moral: it is obvious that cunning often outfoxes itself, and that those who try to cheat others would likely be paid in their own coin. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, there lived a farmer with his 2 sons. He worked hard and looked after his farm, his cattle, and orchard regularly. He did not take a break and toiled with his laborers throughout the year. It was little wonder that he had fields finest in the village. His cattle and sheep were the best in the village. Choicest fruits and vegetables grew in his garden and orchard. During the monthly fair, where all village folks met to sell their wares, his was the best of the lot. His neighbors envied and said, "There goes Manohar. His sons are fortunate to have him as a father. They are going to inherit all this when he dies." Manohar had 2 sons. The elder one was Ravi, and the younger Hari. However, Manohar what could do with his farm, his land, and his cattle, he could not do with his sons. They were not interested in following their father's footsteps. Ravi was a warrior and was more interested in arms and fighting, while Hari liked music and the fiddle. Manohar secretly wished, "I wish I had a son who loved farms more than arms, and one who liked cattle better than fiddle." He worried about what will happen to his lands, but decided he had to go with what he had, and hoped for the best. One day, he asked his sons, "What is it that you want to do in life?" Ravi was quick to reply, "I want to join the army. I want to serve the country and make you proud." Hari seemed not so sure about what he wanted to do. "Well, I like music, and I may become a musician, but think I will have to practice harder." "Okay," the farmer said. "Ravi, you go and join the army and fulfill your wish." Then he turned to Hari. "You too can work towards your dream, but meantime, help me with my work as well." So Ravi left, and Hari stayed back with his father, occasionally helping him in his daily chores, but mostly dreaming about his musical future. Life went on, but one day, Manohar fell ill, and there was nothing that anybody could do to help him. On his deathbed, he called Hari and told him, "Take good care of everything, son. Remember, you are looking after your brother's share too. Give it back to him intact when he returned from his duty." Those were his last words, and Manohar died, leaving everything he had in Hari's care. Hari kept his father's words close to his heart and started on his life as a farmer. Nevertheless, as time went on, he began falling back to his old, carefree ways. He thought, "The lands have given good crops till now. The cattle and sheep has grown and prospered well, and trees have never stopped giving sweetest fruits. So why worry? There are laborers to look after them who have been doing this for long, so they will continue to do so." He began enjoying his newfound status as master and followed his wishes more vigorously. However, hoping for things to take care of themselves was too much to ask. Once left by themselves, laborers stopped giving their best, which meant crops weren't looked after. Cattle was unattended, fruits ripened and fell down from the tree but never reached markets on time. Thieves stole his cattle, while pests and small birds made merry on the unmanned farms. The guards themselves turned to stealing as they found the opportunity too tempting. Hari was oblivious to everything, lost in his world and music. The money his father left was getting him through the days, and there was no shortage of friends and well-wishers while that lasted. But all things, if not growing, have to come to an end. One night, it finally dawned upon Hari when his father came to him in a dream. "Remember my last words, son. Remember to give your brother his share, or more, if possible," was all he said. Hari was relieved his father did not scold him for being careless, but once out of bed, he went to take stock of his brother's share. That soon turned to panic as he learned about the real situation. The farm was nowhere near what it was when his brother left, and he had nothing, no money or accounts to show him. He thought, "What will he think? He may even send me to jail, and no one can blame him for that also." Panic turning to fear, he approached his friends and well-wishers from the village, but they laughed him off and said, "He hasn't come back till now. Maybe he won't ever. Why worry? Enjoy." But Hari wasn't sure of that. He did not want his brother dead, and he wanted him to come back. The thought of showing him the real situation made him panic, and he was running around in the village. His neighbors and others were having a good laugh at him. "We warned you so many times. You did not look after your farm, and you always dismissed us, so now suffer." Nobody came forward to help him, and they were all happy at his misery, and he couldn't blame them also for his own wrongdoings. There was one shepherd boy in the crowd who was considered a simpleton by everybody, but only he gave something which seemed like a solution to Hari. The boy said, "Master, why don't you go to the old lady on the mountains who can do magic? Who knows, she may bring your lost fortunes back through magic." For once, Hari took serious notice of the shepherd boy and climbed up the mountain. The old woman lived in a cave-like house, too old to even move around, but her ears seem all right. She listened to his whole story. "Please help me, old woman. Bring my fortunes back. I will ever be grateful," Hari pleaded. The old woman took time to think, then went inside, and when she came back, she had a small box in her hand with a tiny hole on top. The box was locked and welded with brass strips. She handed the box to Hari and said, "Every day, before sunrise, shake 1 grain of magic dust on all corners of your land and watch the magic happening." Hari's relief was beyond words. He took the magic box, thanked the old woman, and quickly left for home. Next day, he woke up earlier than he had ever done and went with the box to the fields and started the routine as the lady said. But while doing it, he noticed the crops were half uncut in the fields. He also noticed the cut ones had not been taken inside or properly dried, and his laborers were sleeping comfortably. Beginning to get angry, Hari woke them up and sent them off to fields with instructions to do their job properly. He repeated the same routine in the cattle sheds and orchards. Hari had to shout them off the beds and chase them to start on their duties. Laborers were shocked and whispered to each other, "The master in the field? Now God saves us." This routine was repeated every day. Hari went on shaking his magic dust in fields, and his laborers had to keep up with him. Every day he found items that were left unattended and made sure it was taken care of. He was waiting for the magic to happen, but unknowingly he was making it happen. Within time, his farm, orchards, and cattle began to prosper and seemed well on the way to the state when his father was alive. Unfortunately, his brother never came returned. He may have been killed in the war, but the good times came back for Hari. He got married to a good girl and had 2 sons. Time passed, and while on his deathbed, he asked his sons to open the magic box he believed in so much which brought his good days back. The lock was opened, and inside there was nothing except some sand and a note which said, "The magic is in the master's eye, and what your property needs is your attention." Long time ago, the rabbit was regarded as a big hunter. He lived with his grandma in a cabin somewhere in the woods. It was winter, and just like other hunters, the rabbit set traps and snares to catch other animals for food. He got number of such small animals and birds through his well-laid snares. However, one day, he realized that someone was stealing the animals from his traps. Every morning, at the crack of dawn, he went to check his traps, and he found them empty. Soon, the rabbit and his grandma became ravenous due to lack of food. At first, the rabbit was under the impression that the thief might be a clever wolf. However, this thought soon changed when he discovered one morning long, narrow footprints beside his traps. The first thought that came into the mind of the rabbit was that of the thief. However, when examined closely, the tracks appeared to be moonbeams. Since then, the rabbit woke up an hour earlier, hoping to catch the thief. However, the thief was always a few minutes ahead of him and had taken all the trapped animals. The rabbit then laid a cunning trap with a bowstring, and he was sure that he would catch the thief. He kept one end of the string and hid behind the bushes so that he could watch if any animal was caught in his traps. There was a full moon when he set the trap up. Suddenly, the moon disappeared and everything became dark. There were a couple of stars that were sparkling, and there was no mist in the sky. The rabbit began to ponder what had happened to the moon. The rabbit then saw something move stealthily through the trees and was suddenly blinded by a flash of brilliant white light. The light went straight to the trap that he had set. At once, the rabbit tugged on the end of the bowstring and tried to tighten the noose. There was a struggle, and the rabbit immediately knew that he had caught the thief. The rabbit quickly fastened the bowstring to a nearby tree and rushed home. He wanted to tell his grandma what had happened. The grandma, a wise old rabbit, told him, "Rush back immediately and find out who you have captured." The rabbit said, "Now that I have caught the thief, I shall wait till daylight before returning." However, his grandma cautioned him and said, "It might be too late by then, so return now." So, the rabbit returned to his trap to find out who the thief was. However, when he reached his trap, the rabbit saw that the bright light was still present. The light was so bright that it hurt his eyes. Therefore, he went to the nearby brook to wash his eyes and cool them. He made huge snowballs and threw it at the light to put it out. However, no sooner it hit the light, they fizzled out. Next, the rabbit took some dirt from the stream and made some mud balls. Then he threw these mud balls with all his strength at the bright light. He was a decent shot, and as soon as it hit the light, his prisoner yelled. At that point, a strange and unusual voice inquired, "Why am I trapped and subjected to this humiliation? I demand that I be set free at once. I am the man from the moon and must be home before daylight." The rabbit went closer and noticed that his prisoner's face had been dirtied with all the mud balls that the rabbit threw at him. "I shall kill you and the entire rabbit tribe if I am not set free," threatened the moon. The rabbit was terrified to the point that he rushed back to inform his grandma about his strange and interesting prisoner. Although a wise old rabbit, she too got afraid when she heard her grandson's tale. She advised her grandson, "Go quickly to the spot and release your prisoner at once, or all the rabbits will be in danger." The rabbit returned and told the Moon Man, "I will set you free, but there is one condition." The Moon Man was angry, yet asked the rabbit, "Tell me what you want, you silly animal." The rabbit told the Moon Man, "Promise me that you shall never return and steal from my traps." "There is one more precondition," said the rabbit. "Be quick with it, you stupid animal," said the Moon Man. "Promise me that you will never return to Earth," asked the rabbit. The Moon Man agreed to both the conditions. The rabbit could scarcely see in the amazing light, in spite of which he somehow chewed through the bowstring and set the Moon Man free. The moon soon disappeared, leaving a flash of light behind him. The bright light had almost blinded the rabbit, and his shoulders were severely singed. Even today, rabbits' eyes flicker, as if the light is too strong for their eyes. Their eyelids are pink, and their eyes water if they stare at a bright light for some time. Their lips and nose jerk, recounting the rabbit's dread. Since that day, the man from the moon has always stayed away from the earth. Whenever he lights the world, one can see the signs of the mud that the rabbit threw on his face. At times, he vanishes for a couple of nights, when he is attempting to rub the signs of the mud balls from his face. At that point, the world is dark. However, when the Moon Man returns, one can see that he has never possessed the capacity to clean the mud marks from his sparkling face. Once upon a time, in a village in Ukraine, there lived a rich landlord. He owned many farms, fields, and forests. He owned so much land that the peasants of the village treated him as their chief. The chief, however, was an arrogant and petty-minded man, with very little regard for the peasants and poor men who depended on him. He was greedy, very proud of his wealth, and considered the peasants poor and filthy who smelt like dung. He would never entertain any peasant in his mansion, nor let any poor farmer come near him. The poor farmers and peasants considered themselves fortunate if they got a glimpse of him, or had to visit the granary at his mansion to deliver goods. One night, after a hard day's work, 3 poor peasants were sitting around the fire and discussing their day's work. The first peasant proudly said, "I saw the chief today. He rode by as I was working in the field," while the second one said, "Well, that's nothing. I went to his granary to drop 2 sacks of potatoes and onions, and he was standing at the door of the mansion." A third peasant, who was drinking and listening to all this incessant chatter, laughed and said, "So, what's so great about this? Anyone can see him if he passes by." Then he boasted and said, "If I want, I can go and have a meal with him at his table." The other peasants laughed at him and thought he was crazy, as he was the poorest among them. "You must be drunk," they said in unison. "His servants and security guards will kick you out," said the first peasant. They then called the poor peasant a liar and started making fun of him. The poor peasant got up and said, "I am not a liar, and if you want, I can prove it to you." "Well, all right," they said. "If you can prove what you have just claimed, we will give you 4 sacks of wheat and 4 oxen," said the other peasants. "Consider the challenge as accepted," said the poor farmer. "Wait, there is a catch," they said. "If you don't, you will have to work for us, free, for 1 whole year," they added. "Well, well, get the items ready, for tomorrow I shall dine with the chief." said the poor peasant. The next day, the poor peasant walked up to the chief's mansion. The security stopped him at the gate and threatened him if he did not leave immediately. The poor peasant said, "Please wait. I have some important and good news for your master that I have to personally convey to him." "That is impossible. Tell us and we shall tell the chief," said the guards. "I am sorry. It's for the chief's ears only," said the peasant. After some time, one of the guards went and reported the incident to his master, the chief. The chief was sitting at his dining table and was about to have lunch. Hearing the incident, the chief became very curious. He thought that the poor peasant was bringing him some information that would make him even richer, so he asked the guards to let the poor peasant in. The poor peasant was let in, and the chief looked at him as if he was dirt. He then asked, "What is it the good and important news that you have for me?" The peasant looked around and said, "I am sorry. It is for your ears only, so we must talk in private." The chief got more curious. He dismissed his servants and asked them to lock the door behind them. Once he was alone, the poor peasant asked the chief, "What would be the price of a slab of gold as large as a horse's head?" The chief became more curious. He assumed that the peasant must have found some buried treasure and did not want to disclose it to anybody. Since he was the chief, the poor chap must have come for protection. Otherwise, why would this stinking peasant come all this way to ask about this? The poor farmer then said, "If you cannot tell me, I shall go elsewhere. Besides, my wife is waiting with my lunch." Hearing this, the chief politely asked him to stay on for lunch, and saw to that the poor farmer was treated to an excellent 6-course meal with his most expensive vodka. After a fine meal, the peasant relaxed for a while the chief asked him, "Now go home and bring me that piece of gold, and I shall give you a horse for it." The peasant feigned surprise and asked, "Which gold, my lord?" "The one you spoke about," said the chief. "Well, I don't have it. We were talking about it at home, and my friends felt that you would be the best person to ask, and hence I came to you," said the poor peasant. The chief flew into a rage and thundered, "Get out of my house, you blithering idiot!" And the poor peasant walked out of the chief's mansion with a smile on his face, for he knew that he had won the bet with his friends. A middle-aged man was wandering in the forest and lost his way back to his group. He was on a tour with his friends. After lunch, he decided to have a small walk. His friends had warned him not to go deep into the jungle, as he might lose his way. However, he never cared to hear the advice of his friends. The forest was so beautiful and dense. In spite of warnings, he got lost in the forest. When he turned back after a few minutes, he could see nothing but dense trees without showing the way. He was tensed and tried to walk back. He couldn't find the way back. Suddenly, he heard a mild, roaring voice. Frightened by the voice, he walked back. The roar now sounded closer to him. He realized that it was a lion and could see traces of the lion. He rushed and ran faster to save his life from the lion. He saw the lion approaching him. He swiftly climbed a huge and positioned himself comfortably on a high branch. He wasn't very sure how he climbed the tree. Parallel to the branch that he was seated, he saw a bear sleeping in another branch. Lion saw the tree, the man, and the bear. He asked the bear to push the man down, as he was hungry. The bear humbly replied, "Dear lion, I am sorry I cannot do that. This is my tree, my shelter. He came to me to rescue his life. I cannot let him die, and never let him fall. Hearing this, the man felt happy. The lion remained silent for a while. He then asked the man, "Hey, push the bear down. I will leave you." The man, without even thinking for a minute, tried to push the bear. However, the bear was so clever that he hanged to another branch and seated comfortably. The lion laughed at them and left the place. How wicked was the man! Shame on him. The bear in fact saved his life from the ferocious lion, and yet he tried to push him down. Be the bear and help someone who needs you. Don't be like the man who betrayed the bear. One night, the jackal decided to leave the forest and visit the neighboring village. There he happened to meet a bitch and fell in love with her. Soon, the bitch became pregnant. Her delivery date was fast approaching, and the jackal grew increasingly nervous. So, they left to the forest, which he felt was safer. He warned the human beings in the village could take away the pups. The bitch thought this was good advice, and they decided to leave for the forest. The couple reached the forest, and the jackal went searching for a safe place. He found an abandoned den of a tiger, and felt the cave was a perfect shelter for the pups. The jackal told the bitch, "This cave is the best place to stay, and that nobody would disturb us here." But his wife said, "This is the tiger's cave, and he will kill us if he finds out." The jackal assured her and told her that he will attend to the tiger. They began organizing, and the jackal brought some hay so they could sleep comfortably. Suddenly, they heard a tiger's roar. The jackal looked outside and noticed a tiger at the cave's entrance. The bitch became scared and began to weep. The jackal consoled her and said in a loud voice, "Don't worry, my dear. I know that you are hungry and tired. The tiger will soon come into his den, and we can then kill it and satisfy your hunger." He intentionally spoke loudly so the tiger could overhear their conversation. No sooner the foolish tiger heard the jackal's plans, he ran away. He thought there were 2 wild animals in his den, waiting to kill and eat him. The fleeing tiger came across another jackal who was aware of the first jackal's state of affairs. He also knew the first jackal had brought his wife from town and taken over the tiger's cave. The second jackal was jealous of the first jackal and his wife and started laughing at the foolish tiger. The scheming second jackal told the tiger of the first jackal's plans. He advised the tiger, "Don't be afraid, just follow me." The foolish tiger thought for a while and decided to follow the second jackal. The second jackal reassured the tiger and praised his size and strength. He asked the tiger to go to his den and see for himself. By this time, the tiger had regained his confidence and was seething in anger. He remarked, "How can they stay in my den without permission? I am going to kick them out and kill them." Hearing this, the second jackal became happy. Soon, they reached the tiger's den. The first jackal, noticing the tiger had returned to the den with his foe, the second jackal. The first jackal was shrewder than both the tiger and second jackal. He spoke in a loud voice, "Don't worry, my dear. One of my comrades have brought back the tiger. My comrades are hiding in the forest. They will surely catch him this time. He has fallen into our trap, and his flesh would last us some time. This would give you the energy for your delivery." On hearing the conversation, the foolish tiger, who had returned only because of the second jackal's persuasion, turned and ran. His retreat was so hasty that he fell down a couple of times and injured himself. He also cursed himself for trusting the second jackal. The second jackal had followed the tiger, and he too was a bit stressed. While the tiger was resting, the second jackal cautiously approached him and said, "I am sorry that you had to run. He is a rogue, and I never thought you were such a coward. You, the mightiest animal in the jungle, is afraid of one silly jackal." The tiger said, "I am fed up, and I won't go there again. You jackals are all one group. Your aim is to destroy all the tigers so you can move freely in the jungle." The jackal meekly replied, "I am your humble servant, and I don't like the way one of my comrades behaved with you. I know he and his wife need a place, but not at the cost of your den. You know that a jackal is no match for a tiger. You can kill him with one stroke. This should be an example for others. Be bold and come with me. You can also tie my tail with yours, so if you need to flee, I will hold you back." The foolish tiger agreed and approached the den again. The bitch, hearing their footsteps, began to howl with fear. Her husband peeped out and noticed the tiger and the second jackal approaching. He consoled his wife and spoke in a loud voice, "I know you are hungry, and that is why you are howling. Please wait for a moment. My faithful brother is bringing back the foolish tiger. He has also tied his tail with his, so the tiger cannot escape. Soon, you can have the entire tiger." On hearing this, the tiger lost his confidence and bolted. He believed the second jackal was out to trick him, so he ran and turned for his life. The tiger ran so fast and was injured in many places. Finally, a rock fell on his head and he died. The jackal also died because he too was tied to the tiger's tail. A wise and clever person can do through wisdoms, which a physically strong person may not be able to do through his physical strength. This is a short bedtime story of an aged lion who had a clever jackal for a servant. The jackal was also a bit old, and he was only happy to be the lion's servant. Whenever the lion killed an animal, he would first have his fill and leave the rest for the wily jackal. It so happened that one day the lion was very hungry and attacked a huge king elephant. The tusker got angry and injured the lion so bad that he could barely walk. Since the lion could not hunt, both the jackal were starving. The lion asked the jackal to use his wile to try and trap some animal. The lion told the jackal, "Use your wile and bring me an unsuspecting animal that I could kill without much effort. Otherwise we would die starving." The clever jackal thought for a while and came up with an idea. He slowly got up to search for an unsuspecting animal. He came across many animals, but it was obvious that his master, the lion, would be unable to kill them. They were either too fast, and some of them were even stronger than his master in his present condition. Finally, he saw a donkey grazing by the side of the river. The river was almost arid, and the grass was mostly dry. It was evident the donkey was hungry. The wily jackal was thrilled. He thought, "This jack is precisely the animal that I need." He quietly walked toward the donkey and greeted him. He said, "Dear sir, you look tired and worried. Is there anything wrong? Can I help you in any way?" The donkey replied, "I am hungry and have not eaten for a few days." The wily jackal quickly sympathized with him and said, "Oh, that's terrible. Why don't you come with me to the forest? The grass is green, and there is a river next to my cave. You also don't have to worry about any wild animals, because my cave is far from where the wild animals live. Besides, the smaller animals that live besides the river are very friendly." The foolish donkey thought for a while and looked a bit apprehensive. The wily jackal cautiously said, "Your master will not find our place. There are also many animals of your kind living there. There are she-donkeys, Jennies there, who haven't seen a male donkey." Jack, the lovesick Jack, immediately said, "Come on, I have heard enough. Lead me to your place and let me meet my new friends." Together, they left for the hungry lion's den. The lion saw them approaching and was happy that he had a clever jackal for a servant. As a result, the moment they reached close to the den, the hungry lion leaped at the donkey. The lion, out of haste, missed his target, landed on some rocks, and further hurt himself. The terrified donkey took to his heels. The jackal was angry and swore at the lion. "Impatient fool! Couldn't he have waited a bit longer?" However, the lion replied regretfully, "I was so hungry that I got desperate. I did not expect that you would return so quickly. I apologize." The jackal shouted at the lion, "You couldn't kill a foolish donkey. How did you ever think of attacking a king elephant? Not to worry, I will bring him back. But be prepared this time," said the wily jackal. The lion was shocked and said, "How are you going to bring him back? He would have reached his home by now." The jackal said, "Leave that to me and don't act hasty." He then left in search of the donkey. He found him next to the river drinking. He was still breathing hard as he left the place so fast. He said, "You are nothing but a scheming, wily jackal. If I had not bent down, I would have been dead by now." The clever jackal started laughing so hard. "What are you laughing at?" asked the donkey. The jackal curbed his laughter and said, "My dear sir, that was a she-donkey. She has been lovesick for some time now. She could not believe when she saw you walking up the hill and wanted you for herself. She sprang to hug you, but you fled. I told her that you were a shy person, and she should not have acted in haste." The foolish donkey could not believe what he just heard. "Come on, let's not waste any time. They are all waiting for you," said the wily jackal. "All right, if you say so. Lead the way, brother jackal," said the donkey. The lion was shocked to see the clever jackal and the foolish donkey return. However, this time, the lion did not make any mistake. He waited until the donkey reached his cave and quickly finished him. The lion then went to freshen up before his meal and asked the jackal to keep watch. The clever jackal was ravenous and had other plans. He quickly ate the heart and ears of the donkey before the lion returned. The lion returned and was furious to note that the best parts were missing. He shouted at the jackal, "Where are the other parts? Who ate them while I was away?" The jackal remained calm and said, "Do you think that this foolish donkey had these parts? If he had them, do you think he would have ever returned?" The lion did not bother to further question the clever jackal, as he was ravenous, and quickly began eating. Moral: if you can hold your head in the face of disasters, then you would be able to defeat them. Bernardo Visconti, the despot of Milan, was in his day more feared than any other ruler was. Although he was pitiless, there was always a shade of justice in his cruelty. This is the story of a wealthy man and owner of one of the castles given to him by Bernardo. He was well known for his miserliness. One instance, he was summoned to the court for having failed to feed his bull mastiffs, dogs, which had become vicious and attacked cattle. Therefore, he was condemned by Bernardo to pay a fine of 4 florins, gold coins. Upon hearing the amount, the miser begged for forgiveness. Bernardo patiently listened to his story until he had ended his plea. He then said, "If you can answer the 4 questions that I will ask you, I shall remit the 4 florins." So saying, Bernardo listed out the 4 questions. 1. What is the distance between here and the heavens? 2. How much water is in the sea? 3. What is the situation in hell at this very moment? 4. And last of all, how much is my person worth? Bernardo then looked sternly into the eyes of the miser and said that he had time until tomorrow morning to answer these questions. So, be careful before answering them. The miser became depressed, as he had absolutely no clue to any of these questions. Deep in thought, he returned to his castle, sighing deeply at his plight. He found his butler waiting for him, to whom he narrated his plight. Even the great Socrates or Aristotle will not be able to answer these questions. The butler, who was blessed with sufficient intelligence, told him, "Don't worry, have your supper, and get an early sleep." The butler further added, "I will have something for you by tomorrow morning. I relish such challenges. I will just shave off my beard, put on your clothes, and present myself before Bernardo tomorrow morning. I am sure that he will not notice the difference." The following day, the butler dressed up as the miser and presented himself at the court. Bernardo was in a good mood and had asked all the courtiers to be present. He was eager to find out how the miser would respond to his 4 questions. The butler pulled his cape round his reed and covered the bottom half of his face with a scarf, as it was cold. The room was also not well lit, and this further helped the butler, as he was not recognized. Bernardo thundered, "Do you have the answers to the 4 questions?" The butler, in guise of the miser, calmly replied, "Yes, my lord, I do have answers to all the questions." Bernardo was a bit taken aback. The butler carried on, "You first asked me to calculate the distance between here and the heavens. Having studied all distances, I have found out that the distance is 35,765, 175, 50 miles and 19 feet. Bernardo looked at him and said, "Your conclusion seems to be very accurate, but can you prove it?" The butler, in the guise of the miser, said, "I would appreciate if you could have the distance measured by your esteemed scientists, and if this figure is wrong, you can very well hang me." "Okay, please proceed to the next question," said the pleased Bernardo. The butler, in the guise of the miser, said, "The next question was how much water was in the sea." He went on to add, "I must confess that this is a rather difficult question, because water is never stagnant, as there are rivers constantly flowing into the sea. However, on an average, I have managed to establish that there are 26,298,000 casks, 8 barrels, 12 pitchers, and 3 glasses of water in the sea." Bernardo could not conceal his smile, and he asked, "Are you certain about this?" The butler replied, "I have computed this to the best of my ability. If you feel there is an error in my judgment, have it measured by your team of scientists and mathematicians. If I am wrong, please feel free to have me quartered." Bernardo, although a little taken aback, was extremely surprised at the man's presence of mind. He decided to keep a careful eye for the 3rd question. The butler, as the miser, continued, "Your lord, may I proceed to the 3rd question?" "Of course, please do," said Bernardo. The butler said, "You wanted to know what is being done in hell at this very moment. Well, the devil and his associates are torturing, cutting, quartering, and hanging people just as you are doing in this city of Milan. You may wonder how I know this, because I know a man who has been there and returned and revealed this to Dante, the Florentine. The man is now dead, but if you don't believe me, please send for him." Bernardo was truly amazed, but more amused at the man. Before Bernardo could regain his composure, the butler went on to the last question. He said, "As to the value of your person, I would say that you are worth 29 pieces of silver." Hearing this, Bernardo flew into a rage. For a moment, the butler was scared. However, he quickly regained composure and said, "My lord, please listen to my reasoning. You know that our Lord was sold for 30 pieces of silver. Therefore, I reason that you are one less than our Lord, and hence the 29 pieces of silver." The answers were so ingenious and clever that it dawned on Bernardo that this could not be the wealthy and ignorant miser. He rose and shouted, "You are not the real offender." The butler was scared to bits. He threw himself at the feet of Bernardo and confessed the whole truth. The tyrant listened to the whole story and said, "You are worth much more than your master, since he made you wear his clothes and asked you to behave like a lord and nobleman. Henceforth, you will be the lord of the castle. He shall be your butler. You will receive all the income from the castle." And so, despite the protests of the butler, the decree was passed. The will of Bernardo was the law in Milan, and woe to anyone who disobeyed him. There lived a tiny mouse in a big, dense forest that was always in search of food. While searching in the forest one day, it came near a lion's den. The good smell coming from the lion's den drew the little mouse inside it. The mouse found several pieces of animal meat on the floor. Those were all the leftovers of the animal the lion had eaten. Therefore, the mouse ate few pieces. Later, it decided to eat the other pieces at night. So it stayed back in the den. Due to overeating, the mouse fell asleep inside the den. The lion returned to its den at dark, but could not see the sleeping mouse as it was dark inside the den. The lion ate the entire piece of lamb it had brought and left the bones lying on the floor. After a sumptuous filling meal, the lion slept off and started snoring aloud. The loud snoring sounds woke the mouse up with a sudden jerk. When the mouse saw the lion sleeping in the den, he got scared and puzzled, and accidentally bumped into the lion's leg. The mouse felt the smooth fur of the lion's body. While exploring it, the mouse reached the lion's ear, and this led to waking up the lion. The disturbed lion, agitated, snorted loudly. "Who is it?" The frightened mouse declared his identity with a feeble voice. The lion was furious as it got disturbed during his sleep. So he said, "How dare you disturb my sleep, and where are you?" When the mouse responded, the lion had to light up a lamp, as it was very dark inside the den, and he could not possibly see a tiny creature like a mouse. With the light, the lion looked at his clean den. It was devoid of any bones or leftover meat. Moreover, there was no usual stink in the den due to the animal leftover meat and other stuff. He was quite amazed. In one corner, the lion looked at the petty little mouse. The mouse was shivering with fear. So, the lion pondered for a while about how the mouse had managed to keep the den clean. Therefore, he decided that he would keep the mouse in his den so that it can have the leftover meat and bones. That much food will be more than sufficient for the mouse, and this will also keep his den stink-free and tidy. Then the lion, in a grumpy and angry voice, asked the mouse, "Why have you entered my den?" Petrified, the mouse retorted with folded hands and honestly told the lion that he had reached the den in search of food. He could not resist the good smell of the meat and was extremely sorry for his action. Hence, the mouse apologized and asked the lion to let him go. The lion told the mouse that he could stay in the den only if he allowed the lion to sleep properly. The mouse was too scared and did not understand what the lion meant. He kept begging the lion to leave him. Looking at the terrified mouse, the lion lowered his voice and said in soft tone, "Oh, tiny mouse, do not be scared and frightened. Just listen to me carefully. I go hunting every day and bring the carcass of some animal as part of my daily meal. I do not eat it completely. You are a small and tiny animal, and hence you can easily eat the leftovers and make yourself happy. If you like eating the leftovers without searching for food, you can stay here and help me keep this place clean." This revealed the soft and humble side of the lion's gigantic character. The mouse was taken aback with unlimited joy. To this he said, "Yes, Mr. Lion, I shall stay in the den." However, the lion put forth one simple condition for the mouse. The lion said that he would have to keep the den clean. The mouse can eat the leftover meat and bones. If the mouse failed to complete the leftovers, he must throw the remaining away from the den. So the task of cleanliness of the den was given to the mouse in exchange of his stay and food. The mouse was more than happy to accept the offers. After this short but sweet conversation, the lion asked the mouse to sleep in the corner of the den, and he himself slept in the middle of the den. So, as the mouse and the lion lay fast asleep in the den, the mouse suddenly started rolling freely on the floor of the den. Rolling on the floor while asleep happened to be a sleeping disorder the mouse had, and he was completely unaware about this habit. So, he kept rolling, and by midnight, he came closer to the lion's body. As soon as the mouse came closer to the lion's body, he felt the warmth of the lion's fur, and this helped him sleep deep and in a more comfortable manner. So, in his sleep, the mouse wanted to feel more cozy and comfortable. So, the mouse unknowingly adjusted himself in the fold of the lion's huge leg. Owing to his humble nature, the lion felt fine with this, and he even adjusted his leg so that the mouse can sleep peacefully. When the sun rays of the early morning fell on the lion's eyes, he woke up. The lion saw that the mouse was fast asleep on his leg. After watching the mouse sleep so calm and peacefully, the lion gently woke the mouse up, as he had to get up. While the lion pushed his paw, the mouse woke up. Seeing the lion's nose so close up, the little creature was extremely terrified and tried to jump off. However, the lion helped the mouse get down and prevented the mouse from hurting himself. After this kind gesture, the mighty lion asked the mouse to be not frightened and told him the reason why the mouse had to wake up. It was because he was sleeping on the lion's leg. After hearing this, the frightened mouse started laughing vigorously. Seeing his friend laugh, the lion broke into pangs of laughter too. This was the onset of a beautiful bond of friendship between the tiny mouse and the mighty lion. Long time ago, ages ago, It was said that the tiger was like a lion without any stripes on his back, and the rabbit had a long tail. The tiger had a big farm that needed attending to, as it was overgrown with brush. Therefore, the tiger was searching for workers to clear the undergrowth. The tiger called the animals and said, "I am in need of a good worker to clean this place. I shall offer a buffalo in payment for whoever does this work the quickest." The monkey called in first and said that he would like to do the job. So, the tiger assigned the job to him. However, the tiger, to his dismay, found out that the monkey was very slow. Therefore, the tiger fired him as quickly as he hired him. The goat was the next on the list. Although the goat was a good worker, he could never concentrate nor focus. He would work on one part of the field and then move away to another part, without finishing the area that he was working on. As expected, the tiger fired him without any pay. The armadillo was the next to be tried. It was the same story with the armadillo as well. He was a good worker, but the moment he saw any ants, he would stop and finish of the lot. As a result, work suffered. Therefore, he too was fired without pay. Finally, a rabbit came forward. The tiger was a bit surprised and laughed at him and said, "How are you going to complete the work where these animals had failed?" Anyway, the tiger decided to try him. The tiger was surprised to note that the rabbit was a hard worker. He quickly cleared most of the farm. Seeing his hard work, the tiger decided to take a break and asked his son to watch over the rabbit. The rabbit noted that the tiger had left. Therefore, he asked the tiger's son, "Where is the buffalo that your father is going to give me? Is it kept by the side of the river?" "Yes," replied the son. The rabbit decided to take the buffalo without completing the work. Just as he was leaving, the tiger entered and noticed that the rabbit was about to leave. He then ensured that he stayed until the work was complete. The work was complete, and the tiger gave the buffalo to the rabbit as promised. The tiger then said, "If you plan to eat this buffalo, eat it in a place where there are no mosquitoes." The rabbit went away with the buffalo. After going some distance, he felt hungry and thought of butchering the buffalo. He looked around and saw there was a farm close by and mosquitoes as well. So he decided not to kill the buffalo and went ahead a little more. Finally, he came close to a river and there was strong breeze. He looked around and did not see any mosquitoes. As he was about to butcher the buffalo, the tiger came along and said, "I am very hungry, and will you share the buffalo with me?" The rabbit, out of fear, gave a piece of meat to the tiger, which the tiger gulped it in a moment. He then asked the rabbit, "Is that all what you are going to give me? I am such a good friend of yours, and I am sure you will give me more." The rabbit, out of fear, gave more to the tiger. Soon, he had finished most of the buffalo's meat. The rabbit had managed to get only a small piece and was furious. He decided to teach the tiger a lesson. Few days passed. One day, the tiger was returning from hunting, and he saw the rabbit cutting big blocks of wood. He asked the rabbit what he was doing. The rabbit said that there were orders that every animal in the jungle has to build an enclosure or fence around themselves for protection. The tiger was surprised and said, "This is news to me." "Well, everyone is doing it," said the rabbit. The tiger got a bit apprehensive and said, "Please, my good friend, won't you help in building me an enclosure?" The rabbit, although initially hesitant, but after seeing the tiger's pleas, the rabbit eventually consented. Therefore, he quickly built a solid wooden enclosure for the tiger and went away. It was strong and could not easily be penetrated. The tiger was inside the barricade and after some time felt hungry. Soon a monkey passed that away, and he asked the monkey, "Has the danger passed?" Although the monkey had the faintest idea what the tiger was asking, he still replied, "Yes." Therefore, the tiger asked the monkey to let him out of the enclosure. "I cannot, as the ropes are tied securely. Ask the one who put you inside to come and let you out," said the monkey. Soon, the goat came along, and then the armadillo and other animals, and all of them had the same answer. Soon, the tiger realized that he had been tricked. He tried with all his might to jump over the enclosure, but was unsuccessful. He kept on trying until he was tired. Then, he tried to break down the fence, but that too proved futile. He became very thirsty and hungry. He decided to rest a while. He became desperate and thought that he might never get out of there alive. He starts hallucinating about food and good spring water. Once more, he decided to give it a try with all his might. He kept on hammering the enclosure until there was a little gap. He pushed and shoved through the gap and finally broke through. However, he was injured very badly in the process and got deep gashes and cuts on either side of the body. As a result, to this day, he carries those stripes